Okay, thanks, Scott. Good evening and welcome to the Williston Development Review Board of Tuesday, April 9th, 2024. My name is Pete Kelly. I'm the chair of the DRB. This is a hybrid meeting taking place in the Williston Town Hall and on Zoom. All members of the board and public can communicate in real time. Planning staff will provide instructions for public participation before we begin. All votes taken in this meeting will be done by roll call vote in accordance with the law. If Zoom crashes, the meeting will be continued to April 23rd, 2024. We'll start by taking a roll call attendance of DRB members. Nate Andrews is absent. Here? Oh, he is here.
I'm here.
Oh, he's hiding. Okay. Hello, Nate. Sorry about that. Paul Christensen.
Present.
Lisa Braden Harder.
Present.
Scott Riley is absent. Dave Turner is absent. Mr. Hemmelgarn is
present.
In attendance. And the chair is here, so we have 5 in attendance. We need 4 for a quorum, so we do have a quorum. Okay, I'll turn it over to Andrew for Zoom instructions.
Thanks, Pete. Welcome to everybody in person and on Zoom.
On the agenda is the public forum. This is an opportunity for people to address the board on items that are not on tonight's agenda. Anyone present in the room tonight to address the board on items not on the agenda or in Zoom, if you would raise your virtual hand.
We have no raised hands on Zoom.
Okay, segueing to item number 2 on the agenda. This is the public hearing portion of tonight's agenda. We have 5 items on the agenda. DP 23-03, which is a discretionary permit for a 2-lot subdivision. DP 22-09.1 is Nautilus Holdings at 115 Wellness Drive, seeking a discretionary permit for site work modifications. DP 24-01, which is P&P Septic, seeking a discretionary permit for a 16,200 square foot commercial building. Item number 4 is DP 23-09, William and Joan Boardman, requesting a discretionary permit for a 4-lot subdivision. And last is a pre-app, DP 24-17, and this is a proposed triplex at 3157 St. George Road. Okay, first up is DP 23-03. Who is here representing the applicant? Hey, Brian.
Hey.
Name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, O'Leary Burke, Civil Associates, 13 Corporate Drive, Essex, Vermont, here tonight representing Mike and Cynthia Olson.
Great. Staff goes next.
That's me. Thanks, Pete. Okay. This is a discretionary permit review of a proposed 2-lot residential subdivision at 98 Snowdrift Lane in the ARZD. Subject parcel is 0.07 acres. Parcel contains 1 existing single-family home, which is served by on-site septic and a drilled well. And the applicant is proposing a subdivision to create, Lot 1, a 6.11 acre parcel for the existing single-family home, and Lot 2, a 3.96 acre parcel for the proposed single-family home. Staff is recommending approval with the conditions as drafted. Moving into the project history, the original subdivision occurred in January of 1979. It's created the 10.1 acre lot. And then you might remember back in November of 22, we reviewed the pre-application, and the project also received growth management allocation in March of 2023. Conservation Commission did review this application. Their recommendations are included as conditions. Public Works and Fire also commented on this application. Please note that Fire Department comments that are not contained in the development bylaws cannot be enforced by the DRB. There were no public comments at the time of mail out. So looking over the pre-application recommendations, the pre-application recommendations requested that the applicant provide documentation of that 98 Snowdrift Lane has the right for a second access off of the private driveway. The applicant must provide documentation that the proposed lot 2 has legal access to Snowdrift Lane. Discuss this below. Looking at the Conservation Commission recommendations from their October 22 memo, it is number 4F, requests that site plans show defined building envelope of 1/2 acre or less for the proposed lot, and that clearing of the existing forest or vegetation on the home site to be limited to the building envelope should include the home site, including the yard, parking, and circulation areas, and any accessory structures. This is discussed below as well. So looking at the chapter 31 recommendations, skip to the 31.3.2 states that setbacks from the rear and side property lines may be controlled by the landscape buffer requirements of chapter 23. We will discuss this below. The building envelope for lot 2 does exceed the 15-foot setback requirements. It's required for lot 1. Additionally, the setback for lot 1 from Old Creamery Road is 50 feet. The project complies as proposed. For 31.9 lots and home sites, 31.9.6 requires new homes to minimize visual impacts from public ways where possible. The new lot is distant from the nearest public right-of-way, but for the clearing of that lot, it does limit the clearing to 1/2 acre. This does not include, however, access driveways, utility lines, or areas cleared for underground wastewater systems. That applicant has proposed minor clearing beyond the 1/2 acre envelope. Clearing for that 1/2 acre envelope clearing above that 1/2 acre envelope must comply with the requirements of WDB 31.9.6.1. That is also in a condition below 2A II. Moving on to chapter 13. As previously mentioned, the applicant should provide documentation that at final plans that lot 2 has legal right to access of Snowdrift Lane. I have spoken to the applicant recently, and I believe that they are well on their way to doing this. For on-site infrastructure, WDB 1510 requires that on-site water supplies and sewer also meet the state requirements. Condition 22 references this. For density, the 10.1.
So can we stop there for a moment?
Mm-hmm.
So, proposed condition number 22. There are a number of state requirements that must be met on a project like this.
Mm-hmm.
And why is that one cited and singled out instead of just some type of blanket statement about meeting state requirements?
So our bylaw basically says that we need to have, that the applicant needs to provide septic and well information that meets the state requirements. Basically, they need a wastewater permit, well and wastewater permit. So that's the 22 is drafted the way the bylaw discusses it. We're deferring to the state.
I didn't even catch the last sentence.
We're deferring to the state requirements there.
Yeah, okay.
That's all.
Okay, is that new language? Emily, that's not a boilerplate statement, is it?
Maybe not true boilerplate, but we've definitely used something similar before.
We have, okay. Maybe okay. Okay, we'll talk about that later. Okay, great. Thank you, Andrew, for the interruption.
That's all right, yeah. So for density, the 10.1 acre parcel would be allowed a maximum of 4 dwelling unit equivalents, and the applicant is proposing 2. The project complies as proposed. Chapter 23, landscaping. Chapter 23 and Table 23A establishes requirements for landscaping buffers according to project and its adjoining land uses. The existing forest surrounding the project meets the 50-foot type 1 buffer requirements in Table 23A for adjoining uses. Street trees are not required, recommending that the DRB waive this requirement given the fact that the parcel along Old Creamery Road is wooded. Subject parcel is within a significant wildlife habitat area due to its designation as core habitat on the significant wildlife habitat official map. The applicant has submitted a habitat disturbance assessment to Conservation Commission. The project is not anticipated to impact any uncommon, rare, threatened, or endangered species, unique natural communities, farmlands of local importance, special flood hazard areas, wetlands or streams, or scenic view sheds. The WCC's recommendations are included as conditions. The applicant has proposed or has submitted a runoff and erosion control checklist in accordance with our requirements. And lastly, the applicant is required to pay impact fees at the time of administrative permits to construct any new dwelling units. What follows are findings, conclusions, and conditions of approval.
Great, thank you, Andrew. Brian, there's 22 proposed conditions of approval.
Yep.
Do you have any comments on any of them?
They're not big, but in my opinion, conditions 8, 10, 12, 14, 15 look like they might be carryovers from a site plan approval. Maybe not applicable to ARZD subdivision, but I'll leave that up to the board to determine.
So say those numbers slower, please.
8, 10, 12, 14, and 15. I don't think they're, negative, just, I don't know if they are not typical conditions I see for this type of subdivision. And then I had flagged number 22 as well, and if that one could just reference a state wastewater permit, I think that would cover it.
That's where I was going with that one as well.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, DRB members, questions?
Let me find my notes here. I have questions about the issue that was raised about the site clearing greater than a half acre.
Yep.
Would like some clarification on exactly how much area is being proposed to be cleared that's not allowed or beyond the allowable half acre, and why you would need to do that.
Yeah, so my understanding is that you're allowed to clear or designate a building envelope up to half acre in size, which we have done, but you're also allowed to clear for access and on-site septic or wells or utilities in the ARZD. So we're clearing to fit a driveway in. We could probably narrow up some of the clearing. You'll see some grading on the west side of the south side of the proposed.
Recording in progress.
Probably skinny up that clearing a little bit there, and where we're showing the proposed turnaround, we could probably move the clearing limits in that spot slightly as well, but they're pretty minor clearing expansions. And as you can see in the back, where the clearing or the building envelope is shown to the the power easement in the rear of the proposed parcel, we're not proposing to clear to the limit of the easement. So altogether, it's roughly a half acre, but it's not all within the building envelope because the septic, the mound system's, a few hundred feet away, and there's a driveway that needs a little bit of grading to facilitate as well, so.
So, and again, the staff very nicely included the bylaw excerpt here in the report, and it does not include driveways, the half acre includes the yard and the space occupied by any accessory structure, and it limits it to a half acre, but it does not include access driveways, utility lines, or areas cleared for the underground components of on-site wastewater. So when you take out your wastewater and the utility line that's underground that goes to it, which is off the screen here, it seems like what's cleared beyond that would be limited to a half acre. And from what you were saying, I'm not sure that it actually does exceed that.
Is the bylaw that you can't clear more than the half acre associated with the approved building envelope, but you can also clear for utilities and access as well?
That's how I read this.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Right, so we're clearing within our building envelope, and then we're clearing for access and the proposed mound system.
I think how you answer this will solve this. So, so you're not exceeding the half acre for the building envelope. Is that correct?
Not clearing, we're not clearing within the entire half acre, yes.
But it's less than a half acre of clearing for the building envelope.
Correct, yeah, okay.
So,
So I'm going to be inclined to not put that piece into the conditions. I think that they'll just need to comply with the half acre rule. We're not going to give any potential exceptions, this would be my thought.
So I guess
I don't think he needs them.
I don't think
But
it does either.
to clarify, you're saying a half acre per lot, so
yeah, so if we were clearing completely within our half acre designated building envelope, I think the bylaw then allows you to clear additionally if you need to clear for a mound or a well or access or whatever that may be. So you could potentially clear, 7/10 of an acre, 8/10 of an acre, whatever it may be. But we've chosen to, it just works out that clearing is roughly around a half acre, even with those things.
Well, I think
a half acre total for lots 1 and 2, or?
Lot 1 is existing, so it's just lot 2.
right. There is some clearing on lot 1, but it is for a on-site wastewater disposal
Yes,
system.
that's correct. Yes,
So that would be,
that's right.
That's exempt
Right,
from that
exactly.
limitation.
right.
Right.
So, good.
Yep.
I think that was the, I'll let you guys.
I got nothing. Sounds good.
Paul?
Do I understand that you're talking about your presumptive well?
Recording in progress.
Your presumptive well is gonna be drilled in the, power right-of-way?
No, our proposed well is shown right next to the house, in between the house and the turnaround.
Oh, then what was, so
There
that,
might be a utility pole shown.
no, you got a note out here, that says presumptive well isolation.
Oh, that's the well shield. Yeah, so there's isolation distances associated with the well for a septic system, 200 feet uphill, 100 feet downhill.
Okay, cause I was just saying, noting that thing was right in the middle of the,
Yes.
access. I know what the power vehicles can look like when they're putting it in there.
Yeah.
And I was gonna go, if there's something
yeah.
that's under there, that's
Yeah.
not gonna be good.
Nope.
Okay, that's
Nope.
all I need to know about that.
Yep.
And that means that the presumptive sewage isolation shield is from, so you guys are gonna share the current field?
So the field is proposed for the primary of lot 2. And then when you do a subdivision, the state makes you designate a replacement area for an existing structure.
Okay, so that presumptive is your.
So it's
potential
big enough,
designate?
it's big enough for the lot 1 replacement area, but it's primary for lot 2.
You got a good lawyer,
Recording in progress.
you got a good lawyer that's gonna fill out the contract explaining to the two people who's responsible if the field fails.
This is one of the easy ones, 50/50,
Okay.
right?
That's all I needed, I'm
Yeah,
good.
right.
Lisa, any questions? No, good. Okay. Members of the audience, any questions? members of the audience participating by Zoom, any questions? Raise your virtual hand, please.
No raised hands on Zoom.
Okay. So we're gonna close DP 23-03 at 7:21. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we'll be seeing you again.
Okay, next up, James and Doug. This is DP 22-09.1 Nautilus Holdings. This is for proposed site work for a 2 loading docks, expansion at 115 Wellness Drive in the Industrial Zoning District West. Gentlemen, if you would state your name and address for the record, please.
Doug Goulet, Trudell Consulting Engineers, 478 Blair Park Road, Williston.
And James Unsworth for Nautilus Holdings, 28 Howard Street, Burlington.
Okay, staff goes next.
All right. Nautilus Holdings LLC requests a discretionary permit amendment of an approved site development at 115 Wellness Drive, located in the Industrial Zoning District West. This property was formerly the Sports and Fitness Edge, and in 2022 was converted to warehouse uses permitted under DP 2209 and AP 230009, with internal renovations and exterior improvements, including new loading docks in the front of the building. This application seeks approval for additional loading docks, stormwater infrastructure, and reconfiguration of parking. Staff's recommending the DRB take public testimony, close the hearing, and deliberate tonight, and staff is recommending approval of the application. This is the first time the DRB is reviewing this request. There's a number of prior approvals that are shown in the staff report. No advisory boards reviewed the proposed project. Public Works and fire departments submitted comments, and they are included in the conditions. However, the DRB can adopt comments as conditions only to the extent they can be enforced by the authority of zoning. No comment letters were received at the time of mail out. The project complies with all dimensional standards, including the maximum building height of 36 feet, the setback of 35 feet, and the setbacks, rear and side property line setbacks controlled by the landscaping requirements of Chapter 3, and the 40 feet of road frontage that is required on an existing or proposed public or private road. The site's a rear lot with no frontage to South Brownell Road or Marshall Avenue, access being provided by a shared private drive. No changes are proposed to building height, and no changes are proposed to lot dimensions. Outdoor sales and storage are not proposed or anticipated in this project. The applicant's proposing an amendment to a previously approved development under DP 2209. Specifically, the applicant's proposing to provide new loading docks on both the east and the west sides of the building to facilitate the warehouse use. On the west side of the building, improvements include construction of a depressed ramp to a loading dock with retaining walls and an adjacent paved drive, both to access a new 16-foot by 34-foot concrete loading platform. And on the east side of the building, a new overhead door is proposed and a paved driveway to serve this new door. A gravel drive currently provides access to the existing overhead door to the east, and this gravel will be replaced by pavement. Other improvements include painting lines to prohibit parking in certain areas where proposed truck turning movements will require the need for additional room beyond the current parking lot drives and aisles. A number of parking spaces will be painted with X's, denoting that they are not available for parking in the areas anticipated for maneuvering. In an effort not to increase the impervious surface on the site, 29 parking spaces are proposed to be converted to grass. As stated under WDB 6.10.3.1, the scope of the hearing and DRB action will be limited to determining whether the proposed amendment complies or fails to comply with this bylaw. Pre-application is not required for this amendment. No changes in access are proposed. Trip generation presented for DP 2209 was 10 p.m. peak hour vehicle trips. This is not anticipated to change as a result of the proposed site improvements. For vehicular parking, the total spaces comply as proposed. The current number of parking spaces is 139. The proposed site modifications require removal through construction or line striping of 14 parking spaces, and a further 29 spaces will be replaced with grass to compensate for new impervious surfaces. So this leaves 96 proposed parking spaces. WDB Table 14A specifies the number of off-street vehicle parking spaces for different uses. Industrial uses are very diverse, and 1 space per 1,000 square foot should be used as a starting point, but the DRB has flexibility in determining the required number of spaces. So the proposed number of parking spaces equates to 1.71 spaces per 1,000 square feet, and the building has a 55,850 square foot footprint. The applicant anticipates a need for 21 to 25 spaces for employees and visitors, which is about 0.44 spaces per 1,000 square feet. 96 spaces is appropriate given the site is pre-existing and the scale of development proposed is minor. The applicant's number of employees and the flexibility accorded to the DRB. The existing parking is much more than what is needed, and the applicant is proposing to reduce the number of parking spaces by 30%, or 43 spaces. ADA spaces can comply with the condition. WDB Table 14B requires 4 ADA spaces based on the proposed 96 spaces, or 1 space based on the applicant's needed 21 to 25 spaces. There are proposed 2 ADA spaces shown near the entrance to Unit 101, and 1 ADA space near the entrance to Units 102 and 103. There are 4 ADA spaces existing. 1 space will be removed to accommodate the new loading dock on the west side of the building. WDB 14.3.2 allows the DRB to find that a development needs more or fewer accessible parking spaces than stated in Table 14B. And WDB 14.3.2.3 allows industrial uses to meet lower ADA standards. The DRB should discuss an additional ADA space on the west side, given that 1 existing space will be removed. That's been added as a condition, condition 8A. For bicycle and parking and end-of-trip facilities, project complies. Table 14A states that total bicycle parking for industrial uses must be provided 5% of vehicular parking with a minimum of 4 spaces, of which 75% must be long-term. The applicant's proposing 4 short-term spaces and 3 long-term interior spaces. WDB 14D requires 1 shower and changing facility for 3 long-term bike parking spaces, and end-of-trip facilities are provided in each of the 3 tenant spaces. On-site infrastructure complies as proposed. The applicant is proposing a new catch basin and storm drain pipe to collect water at the low point of the depressed loading dock on the west side of the building, connecting to the stormwater feature to the south. Existing utilities will remain. All utilities are underground. Stormwater collection and treatment must be provided in compliance with Chapter 29. As for maintenance, the site can comply. Snow storage areas are not shown. 2 enclosed dumpsters are shown on the plans as approved in 2022, but not yet installed. Final plans should demonstrate compliance with WDB Chapter 16.6 on snow storage and WDB 16.7 on solid waste storage, and that's been added as condition number 21. The landscaping complies. Existing landscaping buffers are to remain. Parking lot landscaping can comply. WDB 23.5.1 requires parking areas that contain more than 24 spaces to be broken up by landscaped islands or medians that occupy a minimum of 5% of the parking area, and that no single rank of parking spaces shall include more than 24 spaces without being broken up by one or more landscaped islands or medians. There are 3 landscaped islands in the parking lot. 1 landscaped island was removed when the site was redeveloped under 22.09. Former parking spaces were removed as well, such that there's no single rank of parking spaces existing 24 spaces. Final plans will need to demonstrate compliance with WDB 23.5.1, either by showing that the existing landscape islands comprise a minimum of 5% of the parking area, or by showing additional landscaped islands to achieve compliance, and that is added as condition 7A. Street trees complies as proposed. Wellness Drive is a private road that runs through the site with existing trees on the west side and a watershed buffer on the east side. Only trees in the way of new access should be removed. All other trees should be retained and protected during construction per WDB 26.6.1. Conservation areas complies as proposed. The site contains an unnamed stream and significant wildlife habitat area, core habitat. No development is proposed in the watershed protection buffer or the core habitat. Watershed health complies as proposed. This is considered a exempt development because the extent of clearing is less than 1/4 acre. So there's no requirements to submit a erosion control plan or the erosion control checklist, but the applicant is encouraged to monitor and minimize runoff and erosion, taking whatever measures are needed to protect neighboring properties and water quality. Site work, yes. So the applicants proposed removing 29 parking spaces and converting them to grass. And so that complies as proposed. And the parcel does contain Class 2 wetlands shown on the site plan. Wetlands are protected by Chapter 29 and state law. WDB 29.9.3 establishes a watershed protection buffer of 50 feet to unnamed streams. And 29.9.4.1 establishes a 50-foot buffer to Class 2 wetlands. No development is proposed within the 50-foot watershed protection buffers, and they will remain well vegetated and effectively delineated with existing vegetation. So that complies as proposed. No changes to outdoor lighting are proposed. No changes to signage are proposed. Impact fees, compliance is anticipated, and non-residential development that results in an increase in the PM peak hour trip ends must pay a transportation impact fee. The applicant estimates there will be no increase in the current trip generation of 10 vehicles per hour during the PM peak. And what follows are findings of fact, conclusions of law, and conditions of approval for the DRB to consider. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Melinda, appreciate it. All right, gentlemen, so there's been 21 proposed conditions of approval. I'd like you to comment on if there's any concerns that you have. I'd like you to specifically address proposed condition of approval number 8 as it pertains to the ADA space.
Okay. I had 2 I wanted to talk about. 8 is the second one, 7A is the first one. With regards to landscape islands, we did do a computation, and the current islands do not meet the 5% requirement, so we will be adding 4 additional islands of the equivalent size to what's there now. on the final plans to bring us to the 5% landscape requirement.
Okay,
Number 8, with regards to ADA spaces, as Melinda said in her overview, the proposed plan with reductions in existing parking for various reasons, whether it be for truck movement or to reduce impervious surface, we're going to take our total down to 96 parking spaces. That's substantially more than what we need for a warehouse use. We're estimating 20 to 25. So if we use that number in the ratios in the development regs, we need 1 ADA space. We've got 2 existing in the front of the building and 1 which will be existing and preserved on the west side. So for a total of 3 ADA spaces. So we feel that's sufficient for this warehouse use and ask that you agree with that determination.
okay.
Condition 21, we need to show snow storage areas on the final plans, which we'll do.
Okay.
So we had,
DRB members, questions?
I'd like a couple clarifications on what you just said. So if we pulled the site plan up on the screen, are you saying that you are adding 3 additional or 4 additional landscape islands in the parking
yes,
area? Can you show us exactly where that is? Because I'm not,
They're not.
Short answer.
they're
drawn yet.
not drawn yet.
No.
I
So
see.
So what Doug's saying is that, correct, I'm gonna paraphrase.
Good, thank
Doug's
you.
saying that he doesn't comply, he acknowledges
Gotcha.
non-compliance, and will make the changes when he submits his final
And
plans.
so therefore 7A is an entirely appropriate condition
Yes.
to put into here. Gotcha. The number 8, I understand exactly what you were saying. I wanted to clarify a couple things though.
Sure.
So per the ADA, I believe that requires 1 spot essentially for every 25 parking spots up to a certain number. Is that right? So that's where with 96 spaces, the
federal
ADA.
requirements are we talking about?
Yes.
Versus local?
Yes.
I don't have that number, John, to be honest.
Okay. Well, I'm assuming that's where the 4 required comes from.
It's in our bylaw. It's for
All right, well, I'm just gonna say that I can understand that with our local bylaw, but at some point, I don't think the local bylaw is going to allow us to supersede the federal ADA requirement, and therefore I'm hesitant to give any exemptions to that, lest we be allowing something that's not allowed by federal law.
Yeah, the other, to add to that is, if, you know, currently you're not gonna use anywhere near the 96.
Right.
Okay, I don't think that's in question, but maybe in the future you will. And how difficult would it be to add another ADA space, Doug?
Just painting lines.
Painting
It's
lines,
just painting
striping out one, you'll be 1 less parking spot.
So I think, so 1 less parking spot of which you have more than you need now, so let's get the paintbrush out. Okay?
I think
Fine with me.
Okay.
We can do that. We can check the federal requirements to make sure we're
Again,
meeting that.
again, I know that.
No, it's a good point.
I should know that, but I don't,
Yeah.
because I rely on my civil engineers.
Well, let's just be safe and
Yeah.
add 1 ADA space.
The other question I had, and at some point this may not be part of our preview, but I don't know, is on drawing C20-03. There's an interesting note there in bold type that says proposed enclosed dumpster approved in 2022, not yet installed. Is that true? Is there something that was required by a previous permit that's not been completed yet?
That was the understanding that they were gonna have, you were gonna have like, you were gonna break this thing into like 4 units at one point, right?
Yeah, we were hoping for just
So
one
that was
person to
where,
sign
that was
project.
where that dumpster came from, because the other thing is, we had approved, see the pavement that they're showing in the 2-03 that goes over to the that loading dock? We had already approved that pavement to that loading dock, and I'm looking at the picture in it, now they're suddenly saying, oh, now they're gonna put it in, but we had approved that pavement going in there. I noticed you added another, bay.
Correct.
'Cause that was only, that was
Right, well,
only, that
that's-
was
that's
only
what
a
the-
single bay we had approved way back when.
Correct, yeah.
And we had approved the pavement to that single bay, so all you're now doing is saying, you want it a little wider is all, right?
Yeah, exactly right.
Right.
When we got the initial approval, we weren't sure, and we're still not sure who's gonna be moving into this space, whether they want an exterior loading dock, whether they want an internal one, so it was just, development's expensive.
But,
Kick the can down
but
the
we had
road.
but like I said, we had already approved the pavement and everything, that's why I was surprised when I didn't notice that it wasn't there.
Yeah, I think that's
So,
correct.
Paul, I appreciate you answering my question, but I'm gonna let these guys answer it.
Okay?
Yeah.
So
Which
the initial
is,
question is correct. It's
It's
not
it's
there
not
yet.
there
it's
yet.
not there, and the reason that it's not is because it's not needed?
It's not needed at this time.
And did we allow for them to not put that in if it wasn't needed, or how did that work, Emily? I mean, we don't usually kind of say, or Melinda, I'm sorry, we don't normally say, well, put it in if you need it.
It
It's
is
either
a-
on the
it-
plan and it's
yeah, it is.
required and you put it in.
It is a condition on the approval, and so, yeah, it should have been put in, but.
I think so. I just don't understand why it wouldn't have gone in if it was,
Well, there was
Applied for it.
nobody paying the contract.
there's nobody what?
Nobody was paying the contract for the dumpster. The dumpster belongs to the tenant. That was the fight we had with the,
I don't think these permits apply to tenants, though. do
Yeah,
they?
that's.
This
you're-
is for the
you're
burn,
mixing-
this is for the building owner.
Yeah,
Oh,
you're
then that's the building owner, so
mixing-
you guys
mixing
are
issues
guilty.
here, Paul.
We're happy to comply with any conditions that were originally
It
proposed.
just seems like that should be happening.
Okay.
That's why it's still in the plan, is we still intend on doing it when the use,
See if
when
any
the
of us
need is there,
notice.
but the need hadn't been there yet, so we
Okay.
punt it down. the
Thank
road.
you, so we're gonna add that as a clarification,
So,
That's all I had.
okay? You good? Nate, anything? Nope. Paul, anything further?
No, I was just surprised that when I noticed that the pavement wasn't there that we had approved the last time this exercise occurred.
I think it's just showing the extent of the new pavement. To be, I mean, what would you do? Do a dashed line and show pavement approved in the previous application, and then new pavement to be added to non-existent pavement to make total overall new
Well,
pavement?
that's the joke. That's actually what's there.
So,
Dashed lines.
so that's, I don't disagree with how Doug's, shown this.
No. It brings up an interesting point here of kind of when do you do things that are permitted and when are you required to do them by? And is there any difference between that paving and the dumpster?
Correct.
I don't know, I'm arguing against myself, so.
Okay. Members of the audience, any questions? Anybody participating by Zoom, questions?
No raised hands up there?
Okay. So, it is 7:44, we're gonna close DP 22-09.1, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is DP 24-01 PMP Septic. Ryan, welcome. Name and address for the record, please.
Brian Courier, O'Leary Burke Civil Associates, representing the Pratt family.
Okay, thank you. Staff goes next.
That's me. This is a request for discretionary permit review to construct a 16,200 square foot building with associated parking and landscaping. The building will be for commercial or industrial use. The property is located at 543 Shunpike Road in the Industrial Zoning District West. The parcel on which the proposed building is sited is currently split across two lots under the applicant's ownership. A 0.47 acre vacant lot and a developed 2.52 acre lot known as Lot 5 on their plat. The applicant intends to apply for boundary line adjustment administratively when final plans are submitted. This will add 0.57 acres from Lot 5 to the vacant lot to create the developable lot of 1.04 acres. The existing western access to Shunpike Road would be closed. All 4 of P&P Septic's lots would share the remaining access to Shunpike Road. Staff recommends approval with conditions as drafted. This is the first time the DRB is reviewing the request, and the prior approvals include a pre-application review for this in August 22nd, 2023, and then in 2016, a 6,000 square foot addition and boundary lot adjustment. Fire Department and Public Works Department reviewed this application. No boards, no committee boards reviewed the application. The DRB can adopt comments and conditions, but only to the extent that they can be enforced by the statutory authority of zoning per VSA Chapter 24. No public comment letters were received at the time of the mail out. So here are the pre-application recommendations and the applicant's response. And I think I'll just go through these as I go through the elements of the staff report, if that's okay with you.
Yep.
Okay, so for dimensional, first of all, for proposed use, the building will be for an industrial or commercial use that is allowed in the district. A wide range of industrial uses are allowed, but commercial uses are more limited. Dimensional standards, compliance is anticipated. Building height's limited to a maximum of 36 feet, and the elevation drawing shows the building height of 23 feet, 8 inches. And the site plan shows the building meeting the minimum setback requirement of 35 feet from Shunpike Road, and both lots retain the minimum 40 feet of frontage onto Shunpike Road following the boundary line adjustment. And side and rear setbacks are controlled by the landscaping requirements of chapter of WDB 23. Outdoor sales and storage are not proposed, and none is shown on the site plan. Boundary line adjustment, the applicant's proposing to apply for a boundary line adjustment between 2 lots owned by the applicant following discretionary permit review, provided that the project is approved. The boundary line adjustment can be approved administratively, as there is no minimum lot size in the industrial zoning district that would require its referral to the DRB. The BLA must be approved prior to issuance of administrative permit for the proposed development. Condition 10A has been added. Lot 5 parcel is non-conforming in relation to landscape buffers to the property to the east, street trees, and parking within the setback from Shunpike Road. The DRB may require the correction of nonconformities that are reasonably proportional to the scale of development. The DRB must weigh the changes being made with the scale of the nonconformity. At pre-application, the DRB recommended correction of the parking within the setback to Shunpike Road and the provision of street trees to Shunpike Road as reasonably proportionate. The applicant's site plan shows the parking removed from the setback and street trees every 40 feet along Shunpike Road. Condition number 8A has been added with respect to the front yard setback. The driveway design complies as proposed. The western access to Shunpike Road will be closed. The new building will take access from the shared driveway, which also serves the lots owned by the applicant to the rear. The existing curb cut appears to comply with the detailed requirements of WDB 13.2.3. Pedestrian bicyclist safety can comply with the condition. Site plan shows a pedestrian path from Shunpike Road running alongside the driveway to the rear parking lot and ending there. Per WDB 13.3.2, safe pedestrian access must be provided from the sidewalk along Shunpike Road to the building entrance. And condition number 9A has been added. The multi-use path complies as proposed. The site plan shows a 10-foot shared use path for pedestrians and cyclists along the Shunpike Road frontage of Lot 1 and Lot 5. Traffic study complies. The pre-application, the DRB recommended the applicant provide traffic generation data, which is attached. The proposed development is expected to result in 3 additional PM peak hour trips. Traffic impact fees will be assessed when administrative permit application is filed. For off-street parking and loading, vehicular parking complies as proposed. Table 14A sets out maximum parking standards, with applicants expected to provide at least 80% of the maximum per WDB 14.2.5. The proposed use is industrial. 18 parking spaces are provided, which complies with the parking standard for industrial uses, which is 1 space per 1,000 square feet as a starting point. The applicant is showing 1 ADA space in line with the standards in Table 14B, 1 ADA space per 25 total spaces. Bicycle parking and end-of-trip facilities can comply with a condition. The site plan shows 4 bicycle parking spaces provided near the building entrance, which complies with the WDB 14A. The site plan notes, but does not show the location of 3 long-term bicycle parking spaces. 1 end-of-trip facility, shower and changing area is required per WDB 14D. Final plans must show the 3 long-term bicycle parking spaces and end-of-trip facility, and condition number 9B has been added. Off-street loading complies as proposed. WDB 14.5.2 requires safe off-street loading areas for commercial and industrial buildings that include more than 10,000 square foot. 1 loading area of 600 square feet is shown on the site plan. For on-site infrastructure, sidewalks along roads complies as proposed. A shared use path is provided on the Shunpike Road frontage. 15.4 private utilities complies as proposed. All utilities must be located underground. 15.5 and 15.9 municipal water and sewer complies as proposed. Property will be served by municipal water and sewer. The subject parcel has existing municipal sewer allocation for a former single-family home that was removed. The new building proposes no changes in flows. The new building will utilize an existing septic tank and pump station with a redirected force main. Stormwater infrastructure complies as proposed. The site plan shows stormwater collection and treatment area between the building and the sidewalk along the property frontage. Snow removal and storage complies as proposed. 2 new snow storage areas are identified. Solid waste complies as proposed. The site plan shows a dumpster pad with 2 dumpsters at the west end of the parking area. Compatibility, potential hazards and nuisances. WDB Chapter 18 has requirements for air pollution, hazardous material, light, glare, noise, and vibration. The future use of the building and site has not been stated, but the applicant has stated the standards of Chapter 18 will be met. The location of the proposed project is not within design review districts, so it's not subject to design review standards. For landscaping, the discretionary permit includes a landscaping plan in compliance with the details required under WDB 23. To the west of the development lot, 599 Shunpike Road is a mixed-use building with a residential duplex and warehousing space. A type 2 landscape buffer of 23 feet is proposed along the west boundary. The lot to the north and east of the development lot are owned by the applicant and in industrial commercial use. The site plan shows a 9-foot type 3 landscape buffers to these property lines, which complies with WDB 23. South of the development lot is Shunpike Road. Landscaping along road frontages is governed by Chapter 26 street trees and discussed in that section below. Street trees can comply with the condition. Street trees are shown on the landscaping plan and as required every 40 feet along the frontage of Shunpike Road. The existing mature hedgerow will be removed and 8 street trees are shown, all identified as black tupelo. WDB 26.4.1.4 requires that if fewer than 35 trees are proposed, no more than 5 trees shall be of the same genus, and condition number 8B addresses that. For watershed health, the project complies. There are no suspected wetlands on the property, no mapped wetlands. So per WDB 29.8, a wetlands delineation was not required. The project will disturb more than quarter acre, but less than 2 acres, is outside a watershed protection buffer, and is not on a steeply sloping site. It's therefore low risk. For WDB 29.3, a completed runoff and erosion control plan checklist has been provided. For outdoor lighting, it complies as proposed. The applicant's proposing 2 pole-mounted, downward-facing, fully shielded lights at the back end of the parking area. The proposed lighting type is compliant with WDB 24.2.4 and 24.4. The table below summarizes the lighting compliance. No details were provided about the timing of lighting. Per WDB 24.5.4, all outdoor lighting, including sign lighting, must be turned off 30 minutes after the close of business and may be turned on 30 minutes prior to the opening of the business. Condition 7A has been added. Signs and public art. The applicant has not provided details about signage. If signs are proposed that exceed the threshold of table 25A, a master sign plan must be approved. For impact fees, new non-residential development is required to pay transportation impact fees. The applicant estimates 3 p.m. peak hour trips. This fee is assessed at the time of administrative permit, and the base fee before adjustments is $1,943 per p.m. peak hour trip. And there are findings of fact, conclusions of law, and conditions of approval for your discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Melinda. All right, Brian, there are, let's see, 21 proposed conditions of approval. Please comment on any that cause you concern.
Yeah, the only one that I would like to chat about is 9A. It says there must be safe pedestrian access from the building entrance to the proposed path along Shunpike Road. So the main building entrance is shown in the back. We're showing a bicycle parking area and just a little stub of sidewalk to the parking lot. It's an 18-space parking lot. We're hopeful the DRB will allow us to use the 2-way aisle as our pedestrian access to the proposed sidewalk along the shared drive with the remaining P&P lots that then goes to the rec path proposed on Shunpike. So there's quite a bit of pedestrian facilities being proposed. Given the scale of the parking lot, we just asked the DRB consider that a sidewalk from those doors in the back to the sidewalk to the east on the shared drive, will be very minimally used. But that's all I had.
Okay, so you're proposing to basically gain access to the east of the building through the parking lot.
Yeah, I mean, there's a sidewalk being proposed on the shared drive. I think that makes sense. It's a much busier drive, but such a small parking lot, I don't know if a designated sidewalk makes a ton of sense to me. As far as
no, I just
practical
was clarifying.
Yep,
Your proposed workaround. Did I have it right?
that's right.
Okay, thank you. Okay, understood. DRP members, questions? Paul?
The only thing I was gonna say, so the only thing basically to the front would be emergency doors?
Yes, there are for a few emergency doors, but the main entry is in the
main entrance
middle
on the back side?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Nate?
No.
John?
I have nothing.
You got nothing? Lisa?
Oh, one other item. And you're good with all of the stuff, all the trees and brushes and scrubs that we asked you to put in between you and the limo service, right?
Yep, so that was
Okay.
something we were conditioned at pre-app and.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Just reconfirming, that was all I need to know.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yep.
Okay, members of the audience, any questions? Is there anybody on Zoom left? Okay. Okay. It's 8:01, we're gonna close DP 24-01. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is William and Joan Boardman. This is a discretionary permit review of a proposed 4-lot subdivision. It's DP 23-01. Brian, you're also representing the client here?
Yep.
Okay, great. Staff goes next.
Thank you, Pete. This is a request for a discretionary permit for 3 residential lots and 1 open space lot. The property is 10 Ricky Vista, located in the agricultural rural residential zoning district. The overall property size is just under 30 acres, where it was subject to Conservation Commission review. Staff recommends approval with conditions as drafted. Final plans must reconfigure lots 2 and 3 to get them out of the wetland buffer, provide more detail on the driveway design and the landscaping species. The DRB may choose to retain final plans review or defer to staff. So some history. This was a lot created in the 9-lot Lacasse subdivision. The home was created in around 2008. Went through pre-application review in December 2022 and growth management in March 2023. Conservation Commission commented. Public Works and Fire also commented. I do note that the fire department's plan review standards are a policy, not an ordinance. Therefore, the only can enforce standards of the bylaw, and we'll get into that more with the driveway. No comment letters were received at the time of mail out, nor up until this evening. So some notes on the Lacasse subdivision. There's an agricultural easement that covers the southerly portion of this lot, Lot 7. It mostly overlaps with open space, so we're good to go there. And then there is a septic easement for adjoining lots 4, 5, and 6. Those septic easements will remain on the proposed Lot 1. So the lot with the existing house and barn also retains those earlier easements for septic access. What follows is a summary of the pre-app recommendations and the applicant's response. Most of them have shown compliance. They need to adjust the density calculation, some other minor things, like reconfiguring those lots a little bit to get them out of the wetland buffer, confirm the clearing area as shown. In terms of the agricultural rural residential zoning district, standard conditions here, they're going to comply with dimensional standards, the 75% open space requirement, as well as other design standards of this chapter for home designs, lots and home sites. So complies as proposed there. Affordable housing and growth management. So this project originally went through pre-application review and growth management under an older version of the bylaw. Today, a project that proposes 4 or fewer units can go right to discretionary permit. So they did get allocation for 2 dwelling units and scored 35 points in the past. However, the bylaw changed before they filed a discretionary permit, so they're in this weird place where they're not vested because they didn't file a discretionary permit. It's kind of a moot point. So they're able to move forward under the bylaw that exists today, the version of the bylaw that existed before they filed this discretionary permit application. So standard findings and conclusions there. Access. Final plans must confirm the grade, show 4-foot clear zones on the driveway detail, pave the first 30 feet from Walker Hill Road, and provide 2 pull-offs. Ricky Vista is an existing private driveway. It serves 1 dwelling. After this subdivision, it'll serve 3 dwellings. And what follows is a summation of what the bylaw standard is, where the bylaw applies, and then some places where the fire department comments don't have authority. So the applicant proposes a 12-foot wide driveway with a 4-foot clear zone. The fire department prefers 14 feet with a 6-foot clear zone. We can't require that. Our bylaw requires pull-offs every 400 feet, where the fire department would prefer every 500 feet. Our bylaw also doesn't specify the size of those pull-offs. For context, a parallel parking space is about 18 by 20 or 9 by 22, and the fire department would prefer a much larger design that would fit a fire truck of about 50 feet in length. So on final plans, they just need to show 2 pull-offs. This image in your packets shows 2 places where that pull-off would be required. The third pull-off is accommodated where the house driveway intersects the driveway that goes off to the barn. So 3 pull-offs are needed, but 2 need to be shown on the final plans. On-site infrastructure compliance is anticipated. Final plans need to show the well and water line that serves the existing house on Lot 1, and copies of the state WW permit are required at final plans and administrative permit. The plans must also show underground utilities, electric, cable, gas, etc. Density complies as proposed. They just need to update their density table analysis. Theoretically, they could have up to 9 units proposed. They're proposing 3, 1 existing and 2 new. Landscaping, compliance anticipated. The buffer standards for an open space subdivision must provide ample buffers. So most of the lot, the parent parcel, is becoming the open space lot. The only place where a buffer is required is where it abuts 206 Walker Hill Road. So they need to specify the planting schedule for that segment. It's about 300 feet on the plans. Street trees, also standard conditions here. No new trees are proposed nor recommended. The DRB may waive the requirement for open space developments when no formal plantings are, or where no formal plantings are appropriate. So this was discussed at pre-application. There are a couple trees along this frontage. More trees would kind of inhibit that middle ground view to the hillside. Conservation areas, standard conditions as well. At pre-application, there is a discussion. So pre-application, one house on a much bigger lot was shown. More of that lot shown here with the building envelope and the boundaries encroached into some of that habitat area. The Conservation Commission recommended shifting it out of that area a little bit, and they have done so. So they're out of those habitat areas. A habitat disturbance assessment was provided. It included that there would be no undue impact, so there's no specific conditions out of that recommendation. And scenic view shed complies as proposed. Watershed health compliance anticipated. This is the one major change that needs to be shown at final plans. Portions of lot 2 and 3 have the building lot within that wetland buffer, whereas the open space must contain all of the wetland and wetland buffer. So they'll need to tweak that at final plans. We've talked with the applicant about this. They'll be able to meet the side and rear setbacks, as well as exceed the minimum lot area. Because this is an open space subdivision, the minimum lot size is very small, just over 1/3 of an acre. Lastly, outdoor lighting and impact fees, standard conditions here. Outdoor lighting at 1 and 2 family households is controlled by Chapter 24, but a lighting plan is not required, and those impact fees are assessed at the time of administrative permit. What follows is standards, findings of fact, conclusions of law. The DRB might want to discuss with the applicant and possibly strike the fire department memo, since all of the statements in their memo are either superseded by the bylaw or are duplicative. They reference the addressing ordinance, which is a separate ordinance that our bylaw defers to. And at the very end, the DRB can decide in the motion if they would like to retain final plan review or defer to staff. Thank you.
Okay. Just gonna make a note about 3B. We'll talk about that in deliberative session. My recommendation to the DRB is to strike it. But we'll talk about that in the deliberative session. So other than 3B, Brian. Do you have anything that you would like to raise or concerns?
Nothing in the conditions. I would just note that we provided the WCC with an updated plan that did show the boundary or the lot changes that Emily alluded to with the lot lines being pulled in within the wetland buffers, and they like what they saw.
Okay.
We just didn't update the remaining plans in time to get it to you folks. But the WCC has seen it, they liked what they saw, and we're fully able to do that for final, so.
Great, thank you. DRB members, questions?
So are the plans that we have, are you saying that the plans we have now reflect those changes, or they do not?
They do not. Unfortunately, we couldn't get them to you folks in time.
Okay.
But we brought them to the WCC meeting.
Could you just sort of, maybe if we put the wildlife habitat map up on the screen, maybe you could point out how it's shifted?
Yeah, so this is the site plan that the Conservation Commission reviewed, where it shows pulling those lot lines out of the wetland buffer.
Yeah, so our original thought process was we had to leave the wetlands out, so the boundaries were in between the 50-foot buffer and the actual delineation. But the rules clearly say it's the buffer, watershed buffers as well, so we pulled the lot lines out essentially to mimic the 50-foot wetland buffer, and then there's a 15-foot setback, so effectively it's a 65-foot buffer.
So the final plans will reflect that.
Are lots 2 and 3 still, does the wildlife corridor still go through them?
So the HDA that was done concluded that I think they said 8,000.
Well, I saw that, but does it still go through them?
I'm not sure. Do we have a map of the wildlife corridor? Is it essentially the tree line, or?
So this photo's a little bit pixelated, but you can see in green, that's most of the habitat area, right?
Yeah, the green is what we denote as our 75% open space
Oh.
area. Yeah, so the yellow area that's shown there is roughly where the two lots are.
So make it a little bit opaque. So this is the existing house here.
Or barn.
That's the barn.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And the dark green is the core habitat. The wildlife corridor is the hatched area. So it does approximately follow that tree line here. Let me got a lot of layers here. There you go. But you can barely see that on the screen, but right along the top here.
Yeah, so we're clearing roughly 8,000 square feet of trees in that area. Our HDA said it was not an adverse undue impact, and the WCC reviewed it fully and didn't have any issues. They're happy that we pulled it further out of the woods than we had it pre-app. But we're bound by the wetland buffer in the back, and then there's a pretty substantial septic easement to the other Lacoste subdivision lots that exist that preclude us from moving the lots further out from the wooded area.
Nate, are you satisfied with that, or?
I guess I'm still unclear if the mapped wildlife corridor still intersects these lots, but I don't think there's any way to be clear on it without the updated plan, really.
Well, the updated plan is gonna be very minor change. Where the houses are is basically the same. It's just the lots around them get a little bit smaller. If Andrew can pull up that
So
map.
it likely is then.
Yeah,
It
and
is.
even that existing map that the town has, like, you'll notice that core habitat includes a lot of the agricultural field, but then some of the forest
And Brian,
as well.
there's no other way to do this, is what you're saying, basically?
In my opinion, I think this balances the habitat versus, as we stated earlier, we're allowed to do up to 9 lots on this property, and we're
Yeah.
proposing 2.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
John? Paul, did you have anything?
No, I'm good.
Lisa? Ma'am, do you have any comments? No? Okay. All right. It's 8:16. We're gonna close DP 23-09. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is the DP 24-17. It's Lot 1, next to 3173 St. George Road. It's the Alair triplex, and Brian, you are representing the client.
Yes, sir.
Okay, staff goes next.
Thanks, Pete. This is a request for pre-application review of a boundary line adjustment, 0.05 acres, between lots 1 and 2, as well as developing lot 1 with a 3 dwelling unit building, AKA a triplex, on the vacant lot. These lots were created in 1965 and are referred to as Lot 1 and Lot 2. So Lot 1 is vacant, it's where the triplex is proposed, and Lot 2 is the existing dwelling at 3173 St. George Road. Together, these lots have a combined size of 1.08 acres. They have frontage on both town and state roads, located in the agricultural rural residential zoning district, and due to the nature of this project, we're not subject to design or conservation review. Staff recommends approval with recommendations as drafted. So referring back, these lots were created in a 7-lot subdivision in 1965. The dwelling was created sometime in 1966 to 1972. Hurricane Lane went in the late 1980s, so that road and the Hurricane Lane subdivision wasn't there when these lots were created. And then more recently, there was a long history related to zoning violations on the property that have been since resolved by the current property owner. What follows, public works and fire comments are included, fire with the typical limitations. The police department did comment, however, it's more advisory in nature, that the prior owner used the backyard as a dump, recommending a word of caution should they go do any digging on this land. No comment letters were received at the time of mail out nor up until this evening. So for the the agricultural rural residential zoning district, we have a couple specific recommendations. One primarily related to that average setback exemption. So in the ag rural zoning district, setbacks are 50 feet from the front and side, from the front yard setback. This property has 2 front yards, both on Route 2A, St. George Road, and Hurricane Lane. And the zoning administrator can average out a setback looking at the abutting properties within 300 feet. In this instance, it's the Sinesta Suites across the street, which has its parking and access drive well within that front yard setback, which calculates an average of about 30 feet. So the zoning administrator, as zoning administrator, we recommend doing this average setback exemption. So rather than being set back 50 feet from Hurricane Lane, the building and any parking areas would be set back 30 feet. In terms of density, we also defer to Chapter 19 discussion as well. Both of these lots were created in 1965. And because of changes to state law, known as Act 47 or the Home Act, state law has new provisions related to density that preempt local zoning. Both of these lots are greater than 0.2 acres and are served by municipal water and sewer. So before Home Act, these lots were considered merged for the purposes of zoning. But now, because because of state statute, local zoning is preempted, now these lots are seen as conforming. They could both be conveyed or developed individually today. So that state law change, because these lots are in an ag-rural district but have water sewer, made them go from being non-conforming and merged to two legally conforming lots. Permitted uses, triplexes must also be permitted. This was another place where state law preempts local zoning as well. And in terms of the open space development standards, they are less than 10.5 acres, too small to be considered an open space development. And these lots are already created, it's not a subdivision, so these standards of Chapter 31 do not apply. Chapter 11, growth management, so they're proposing fewer than 4 units, so they can go from pre-application to discretionary permit without triggering the requirements of Chapter 11. Access, we have some specific recommendations here, particularly that the driveway comply with the site distance and clearance requirements. They're proposing access onto Hurricane Lane. DPW would like this driveway to line up with the Sonesta Suites driveway. Staff does note that Lot 1 has a driveway right now onto St. George Road. V-Trans issued a notice of violation in 2012, spoke with the applicant with this, and this application will resolve this non-conforming driveway that's very close to the Hurricane Lane and Route 2A intersection. Bicycle and pedestrian access, so discretionary permit must include a sidewalk or multi-use path easement along the frontage on both Hurricane Lane and Route 2A. Traffic study, we asked DPW if they wanted a traffic study, and they did not respond to that question, so we assume no. We're not recommending one here. Hurricane Lane has 2 turning lanes onto Route 2A. Parking, a specific recommendation here as well. So parking lot is limited for multifamily buildings. Where our bylaw would allow 6, they're proposing 9. There are some options to increase the parking spaces where there's a solar canopy, where spaces are dedicated to alternative fuel vehicles, i.e. having an electric charging station. So that would need to be resolved at discretionary permit. And bike parking is not required for residential uses. They can store them in the garages or elsewhere on the site. On-site infrastructure, these lots are served by town water and sewer, so those would need to be shown, as well as private underground utilities. Maintenance, final plan, or discretionary permit must show snow storage. If they are to share a consolidated dumpster, it would need to be screened in compliance with 16.7. Density, a specific recommendation here as well. So this property is in the ag-rural zoning district, where before density was much lower. Because of state law preemptions, the density is now 5 dwelling units per acre. The total acreage is just over 1 acre, 1.08 acres, where a maximum of 5 units could be allowed between the 2 lots. The boundary line adjustment they're doing makes it such that lot 1 can have 3 units, and that would still allow for lot 2 to have 2 units. So right now it's a single family home. It can be a single family home with an accessory dwelling unit. If they wanted the existing house at 3173 St. George Road to be a true duplex, that would be theoretically possible. It would need to be something they work out and show details of at discretionary permit. Landscaping, specific recommendations here as well. We're recommending that other residential subdivisions be the best fit for the southern buffer. This would be the buffer between lot 1 and 3173, as well as a type 3 buffer of 15 feet in width along the eastern boundary. What follows is the landscape buffer matrix. North and west, they're along a public way. There's ample trees that are planted. And as we discussed street trees below, They also need to be mindful that intersections need to be free of any visual obstructions. So some of those trees might need to be removed or pruned up. They would still need to maintain that spacing if any are adjusted. Lastly, outdoor lighting and impact fees, standard recommendations here. A lighting plan is required where it shows compliance with the Light 1 zone, which is a lower level lighting zone in the Ag-Rural District, and impact fees are assessed at the time of administrative permit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Emily. Recommendations 1 through 3 with a number of subsections. Any comments, Brian?
No, I thought Emily did a great job explaining some of the complexities associated with it. Simple product once everything's been considered, but a little complicated how we get there. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to.
Okay. So I do have a question about access to the existing residents on St. George Road. You said that there was a resolution to the notification of violation, and I didn't quite follow. I didn't quite track how it got resolved.
Well, it's in the process of being resolved. So VTrans issued this violation over a decade ago in 2012. It's stale at this point. VTrans is going to require an 1111 permit to remove that driveway. And by shifting access from St. George Road to Hurricane Lane, that brings this lot into compliance with both our zoning bylaw and what VTrans prefers, which is driveways that have the options to go to a local road should do that. So going from State Highway to Hurricane Lane or local road is good there. Intersections where a driveway is really close, so it's very close to Hurricane Lane, it's not that ideal distance. Moving it to Hurricane Lane gives more separation from that intersection. So I think this outstanding issue, which isn't our issue, it's a state violation, will be resolved by this application. They'll just need to apply for an 1111 permit to close off that old curb cut.
Okay, so the site plan doesn't show that relocated driveway at this point.
The site plan shows the proposed driveway location. It's shown in the ortho if you look closely, but it's right under where it says 3157 of our St. George Road note in the top left corner. You can see a faint gravel drive through there. So we'll need a highway access permit, not to reestablish the access, but to essentially grass over the existing gravel drive that's there. That's not supposed to be.
I'm pulling up some aerial where you can see it a
And
little bit better.
VTrans, if we were to try and permit that access, their preference is always to come off the minor road. As you can tell from across the street, the lengths they go to consolidate curb cut. So.
All right, so would you, just out of curiosity, would you go to the screen, please, and point where the existing dwellings driveway is going to be routed to Hurricane, please? Or Emily, can you draw it, or?
So to clarify that
Because I'm just not following that.
I think so. There's two lots. The one on the south is an existing single-family home. Their driveway is legit. On the north side is the vacant lot that there's an existing curb cut now on the VTrans 2A that shouldn't be.
I'm good.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, no worries. I got you.
I was like, how are you doing this?
Yeah.
Okay. I was looking at the wrong lot.
Yeah,
Okay,
no worries.
thank you.
So is that gonna have a hurricane address or a St. George address?
I'll leave that up.
For E911?
Yeah.
I just was curious.
I don't know.
I believe it would have a hurricane, because I think it's
Okay,
based off
yeah,
of-
because I was gonna say,
But it doesn't seem like it's our
Yeah.
concern.
Yeah, so Pete, if this was a true subdivision, if this was one lot and they were splitting it into two, we would be looking for consolidated access.
Okay.
Because they're both existing, that existing house can stay on St. George Road, and this new triplex can go off Hurricane Lane.
Okay, I'm calibrated now. Thank you.
For sure.
Okay, Paul, questions?
No, I'm good now.
Okay, Nate?
I would just like to make a point of clarity around the Homes Act, and because this is pre-app, I think there's a chance you come back and that new bylaws have been enacted around this that could affect this. And I think it's important that we don't make assumptions in these pre-apps. And when I read that, well, first of all, certainly density standards are mandated. I agree with that. But what I don't agree with here is when we say that the Homes Act effectively establishes a minimum lot size, because it does not. It in fact encourages municipalities to establish their own dimensional and lot standards. So I want to be careful about how we advise on this.
Would you weigh in on that, please?
This has been the guidance we've received from ACCD on how to interpret the new changes to 24 VSA 4412, where the density creates preemptions both on the net density and the minimum lot size. All the changes that have been proposed forward through the Planning Commission, this application would comply with that. So we have a set of bylaw revisions to bring our bylaw into compliance with state law. We're preempted as is, so this is a clerical task. Everything that's gone through the Planning Commission would allow this subdivision to move forward. It just hasn't been warned for a hearing with the select board yet.
Okay. So, do you still have concerns?
Well, my concern is that this is a sort of an opinion based on a guideline, not on the act itself. It's based on a guideline with a big caveat at the beginning of it that this is not legal advice. So that guideline that you referenced is not the law, right? And this interpretation of that makes a big assumption. And so that's where I have a problem. In all likelihood, the select board will pass that, and our lot sizes, I agree, in all likelihood that will happen, but there's a chance that that won't happen, that we could establish minimum lot sizes with permitted uses in line with the 5 dwelling units per acre density minimum. But that hasn't happened yet, so I just think we, for the record, should point that out.
But at that point, would we not be in violation of the state law?
No.
So the way,
state law is a
Which
density
requires
standard.
you to approve up to 5.
yeah, so what 24 VSA 4412 section 12 states is, in any area served by municipal sewer and water infrastructure that allows residential development, bylaws shall establish lot and building dimensional standards that allow 5 or more dwelling units per acre for each allowed residential use. And density standards for multi-unit dwellings shall not be more restrictive than those required for single-family dwellings. So 1 acre divided by 5 is 0.2 acres. That's where that minimum density or minimum lot size comes from. And that we cannot require more restrictive density standards for multifamily than single family.
So what's your concern, Nate, that if the select board doesn't adopt the recommendation of the planning commission, what is your concern?
I just think we owe it to the applicants to say that the bylaw has not been created yet. We don't know what the minimum lot size or dimensional standards will be when they are. We should not assume that it is going to be 0.2 acres because that is not mandated by Act 47.
That is exactly what Act 47 is saying. As far as I can tell, it says you must allow 5 units per acre.
Yes, but
You do the
there's
math, I'll
no-
do the math, it's gonna come out the same every time. 0.2.
You
On
could,
five
you could have a
equals one.
5 acre minimum lot,
And
and
you would
you would
be-
have to allow that density, but you don't have to, the town does not have to allow lots that small. That's what I'm,
So you have to allow 5 units to be built on that
yes,
lot,
correct.
on that property.
Yes. Yes.
I'm not following you, because in my mind, this is no different than the point I made earlier about our local requirements not being able to supersede the federal law on the number of ADA spaces. We cannot do that here in such a way that we would be superseding the state law that says we have to allow 5.
The state law does not set a minimum lot size.
It sets a number of
It's a
allowable
default.
units per acre.
Yes.
That, in my mind, is exactly the same thing.
So if we had a bylaw that said you can have 5 units per acre, but your minimum lot size is a ½ acre, that would be an internal conflict that would conflict with what section 12 of state law says, because bylaws shall establish lot and dimensional standards that allow for 5 or more dwelling units per acre. So you would allow somebody to create a lot, but then it wouldn't be able to effectively achieve that minimum density. So if that type of bylaw were being proposed or approved by the select board, the staff recommendation would be to not move forward with that because it creates a conflict with state law, and state law would still supersede.
Question. Didn't we just approve that, development with the 2 lots behind, and each of those lots are smaller than,
You need to be more specific.
Yes, that's correct. I know what Paul's saying.
Yeah.
So
We haven't done it yet.
our open space, and I think where some of Nate's confusion comes from, the way our bylaw does density and minimum lot size is a little bit confusing. So if we have an open space subdivision, you can have a minimum of lot size down to 1/3 of an acre, which is pretty small in the ag rural. But net density is based on roughly 1.84 acres per dwelling. So our bylaw has net density and the minimum lot size as a means to encourage clustering here.
no, but what I'm asking is, down the road, someone could come along and now, they now own a that 0.4 acre lot. And they could come along and say, oh, gee, you guys, Williston approved this, so I should now be able to build 5 units on my lot, according to the state rules.
No, that's not
Well,
what the state rule says.
Right, well, the state rules are only places with water and sewer. And
Well,
this-
I'm just saying is, at some point in time, someday, water's gonna come up St. George Road.
And when it does,
No, I'm just saying it, so now you're gonna have this small, less than an acre lot, that someone could come along and say, oh, you guys approved this minimum size lot, I now can put 5 houses on it.
It's 5 houses, it's a minimum of 5 houses per acre, right?
Correct, yep.
Right.
Well,
Yeah, if a small lot does get approved and the regulations change at the time, it'd be dealt as any nonconformity in town. So,
okay. I'm just saying, it's gonna be an interesting
Yeah,
joke, that it's not
you're,
gonna be my problem to deal with.
Yeah, is the Homes Act here forever? I don't know. But, we're well aware that we're gonna be seen under the version of the bylaw and the state rules at the time that we submit. And we're not grandfathered into a set of regs until we submit a complete discretionary application. So.
Yeah, I'm just saying is that at some point in time,
Of course.
we're gonna have created a
Sure.
nonconformity
Yeah.
for someone in the future.
Yeah.
Not my problem.
Yeah, it potential, or it could go the other way.
Okay, any other questions, Paul?
No, I'm good.
Nate, anything else?
No, I'm good.
Don? Lisa? Okay. It's good discussion.
Yeah.
8:40, we're gonna close DP 24-17. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Is that the most you've ever had in one day here, Brian?
Okay, we're
Probably
gonna
not.
go into deliberative session, board, for Tuesday, April 9th, 2024. The current time is 9:40. The DRB is out of deliberative session. Is there a motion for DP 23-03?
Yes, as authorized by WDB 6.6.3, I, John Hemmelgarn, move that the Williston Development Review Board, having reviewed the application submitted and all accompanying materials, including the recommendations of the town staff and the advisory boards required to comment on this application by the Williston Development Bylaw, and having heard and duly considered the testimony presented at the public hearing of April 9th, 2024, accept the findings of fact and conclusions of law for DP 23-03, and approve this discretionary permit subject to the conditions of approval above. This approval authorizes the applicant to file final plans, obtain approval of these plans from staff, and then seek an administrative permit for the proposed development, which must proceed in strict conformance with the plans on which this approval is based. We're going to adjust a couple of the conditions, specifically strike condition 2A2, and we're going to modify condition 22 to read, final plans shall provide a state water and wastewater permit in compliance with WDB 15.
Thank you, John. Is there a second? Thank you, Lisa. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Yay or nay? Nate?
Yay?
Paul?
Yay?
Lisa?
Yay.
John?
Yay.
Chair is a yay, 5 in favor, none opposed, motion carries. Is there a motion for DP 22-09.1?
Yes. Is authorized by WDB 6.6.3, I, Lisa Braden Harder, move that the Williston Development Review Board, having reviewed the application submitted and all accompanying materials, including the recommendations of town staff and the advisory boards required to comment on this application by the Williston Development Bylaw, and having heard and duly considered the testimony presented at a public hearing of April 9th, 2024, accept the findings and facts and conclusion and laws for DP 22-9.1 and approve this discretionary permit subject to the conditions of approval above. This approval authorizes the applicant to file final plans, obtain approval of these plans from staff, and then seek an administrative permit for the proposed development, which must proceed in strict conformance with the plans on which this approval is based. We have one adjustment, and then that is on item 8.A. Final plans shall include an additional ADA space on the west side of the building.
Thank you, Lisa. Is there a second?
Second.
John seconds it. Any discussion? Yay or nay? Nate?
Yay?
Paul?
Yay?
Lisa?
Yay.
John?
Yay.
Chair is a yay, 5 in favor, none opposed, motion carries. Is there a motion for DP 24-01?
Yes, as authorized by WDB 6.6.3, I, Nathan Andrews, move that the Williston Development Review Board, having reviewed the application submitted and all accompanying materials, including the recommendations of the town staff and the advisory boards required to comment on this application by the Williston Development Bylaw, and having heard and duly considered the testimony presented at the public hearing of April 9th, 2024, accept the findings of fact and conclusions of law for DP 24-01, and approve this discretionary permit subject to the conditions of approval above. This approval authorizes the applicant to file plans, obtain approval of these plans from town staff, and then seek an administrative permit for the proposed development, which must proceed in strict conformance with the plans on which this approval is based. We do have one change. We will be striking condition 9A.
Thank you, Nate. Is there a second?
Second.
Paul seconds it. Any discussion? Yay or nay? Nate?
Yay.
Paul?
Yay?
Lisa?
Yay.
John?
Yay.
Chair is yay, 5 in favor, none opposed, motion carries. Is there a motion for DP 23-09?
Yes, as authorized by WDB 6.6.3, I, Paul Christensen, move that the Williston Development Review Board, having reviewed the application submitted and all the accompanying materials, including recommendations of the town staff and advisory boards required to comment on this application by the Williston Development Bylaw, and having heard and duly considered the testimony presented at the public hearing of April 9, 2024, accept the findings of fact and conclusions of law for DP 23-09, and approve this discretionary permit, subject to the conditions of approval above. And there will be one change to the conditions of approval, and that's strike 3B. This approval authorizes the applicant to file final plans, obtain approval of these plans from staff, and then seek an administrative permit for the proposed development, which must proceed in strict conformance with the plans on which this approval is based.
Thank you, Paul. Is there a second? Lisa seconds. Any discussion? Yay or nay? Nate?
Nay?
Yay?
Paul?
Yay?
Lisa?
Yay.
John?
Yay.
Chair is a yay, 5 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries.
Would that be 4?
4,
Did I say 5?
yes.
I wrote
Yes.
4 and I said 5.
All good. 4 plus 1 is 5.
Yep, and I even have a math minor, thank you. That's not apparent right now. Okay. Next up is DP 24-07. Is there a motion?
17,
Yes, it's 17.
I'm sorry?
you said 07, didn't you?
I said DP 24-17?
I thought.
You didn't know.
I thought I heard 07.
Well, let's start.
Sorry, I think I messed up that.
You did.
My bad.
You did. But
But
it's
it's all
okay.
right. It's still
It's okay.
passed.
Is there a motion for DP 24-17?
Yes, as authorized by WDB 6.6.3, I, Paul Christensen, move that the Williston Development Review Board, having reviewed the application submitted and all the accompanying materials, including the recommendations of the town staff and advisory boards that are required to comment on this application by Williston Development Bylaw, and having heard and duly considered the testimony presented at the public hearing of April 9, 2024, accept the recommendations for DP 24-17 and authorize this application to move forward to discretionary permit review.
Thank you, Paul. Is there a second?
Second.
John seconds it. Any discussion? Yay or nay? Nate?
Nay?
Paul?
Yay?
Lisa?
Yay.
John?
Yay.
The chair is a yay, 4 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries.
Point of order. Would you like to reconsider your vote on the previous?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
I was gonna ask.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna backtrack to DP 23-09. Nate, is it accurate to say that you intended to say yay to that?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, so the record will reflect that DP 23-09 is 5 in favor, none opposed, and the motion remains carried. Okay, next up is meeting minutes from March 26th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as written?
So moved.
Lisa makes a motion to approve the minutes as written. Is there a second?
Second?
Paul seconds. Is there any discussion? Yay or nay? Nate?
Yay.
Paul?
Yay?
Lisa?
Yay.
John?
Yay.
Chair is a yay, 5 in favor, none opposed. The meeting minutes are approved. Is there anything else to bring forth tonight to motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Record.